Welcome and thank you for joining today's conference BPM PRR Stakeholder Call. Before we begin, please ensure you have opened the chat panel by using the associated icon located at the bottom of your screen. You can submit questions throughout the presentation to all panelists from the drop-down menu in the chat panel. Enter your question in the message box provided and send. All audio lines have been muted until the Q&A portion of the call. We will give you instructions on how to ask the question verbally at that time. If you require technical assistance, please send a chat to the event producer. With that, I'll turn the call over to Ryan Air.
All right, and hello. Thank you for joining us today for the BPM Change Management PRR Review Monthly Meeting. My name is Ryan Air, representing the Customer Readiness team here at the ISO, and I will be facilitating today's web conference. Today's call is being recorded. These recordings are for informational and convenience purposes only, and any related transcriptions should not be reprinted without the ISO's permission. As a reminder, these monthly calls are structured to stimulate honest dialogue and engage different perspectives. While we welcome comments and questions, please remember to keep comments professional and respectful. We will be taking questions throughout the call today. If you are dialed in by phone only and not on the WebEx, you can enter the question queue at any time by pressing #2 on your telephone keypad. If you are connected audio through the WebEx platform, please use the raise hand feature located above the chat box on the lower right-hand side of your screen. Please introduce yourself before asking your question. And if you need technical assistance during the call today, please send a chat message to the event producer. The purpose of today's meeting is to discuss the proposed revision requests that are in the initial or recommendation stage of the process. Today, we'll be discussing 11 PRRs, 7 are in the initial stage, and 4 are in the recommendation stage, and all PRRs were submitted by the ISO. The purpose of the BPMs is to set forth business practices that implement the ISO tariff. The ISO conducts a yearly policy initiative roadmap process to consider and rank initiatives. Policy changes submitted through the PRR process will be referred to the policy initiative roadmap process, and each subject area in a BPM is based on enabling language in the ISO tariff. The PRR process cannot be used to introduce changes that are not supported by the existing tariff authority. The first BPMs that we are covering today is for market operations, PRR number 15, 47, 48, 49, and 52, all in the initial stage. Michael Martin will be covering these, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Michael.
Good morning, it's Michael Martin in Market Operations. We'll start with PRR 1547. This is a clarification to existing language in the Market Ops BPM section 429 on ancillary service constraints for storage resources. The reason for the change is to add a couple of conditions where storage resources may not be eligible for bid cost recovery. We did receive a couple of comments from TerraGen and from PG&E, and today we have a couple of subject matter experts, Jenny and Yannick, that I'm going to throw it over to help explain the need for this PRR. Jenny?
This is Yannick from. Can you hear me on your end? Okay. So, we changed the timing of the implementations. So we needed to accommodate for that in the case. And so as a result,
Hi, Yannick, this is Ryan. I'm sorry to interrupt. We're having a really hard time hearing the audio come in from your line.
I'm going to be trying on Jenny's phone. Can you hear me better here?
Yes, that's much better.
Okay, actually, let me mute mine because it's. There we go. Yeah, so I was saying, so the Furman project, 2000,
Yannick, it appears we're still getting that audio, the audio issue. Maybe what we could do is we can move on to the next PRR. We can come back to you, Yannick, to see if the audio is improved.
Yes, excellent idea. Let's go ahead to the next PRR, and then we will return to this one. Okay, so we're pushing on to PRR 1548. This is a clarification to bid cost recovery and charge constraint language that we did put out in a prior PRR. And this establishes the, hold on a second, something, I apologize for the pause here. Something doesn't look right with the wording and this PR. That looks like something's combined incorrectly. Let me confirm this PR is correctly labeled so not to confuse everyone. Give me 1 second, I'm double checking. Sorry for the pause. Hold on 1 more second, please. 1548. And so 1548, for some reason, I think we got this slideshow incorrectly labeled. So let me discuss 1548, which is, this is the new process for establishing the wheel-through priority, which is effective June, this coming June. The reason for the revision and the words here, this is correct for PRR 1548. Just the title in this slide is incorrect. So again, this should read 1548, new process for establishing wheel-through priority effective June of 2024. This process is an initiative. It's called the Transmission Service Marketing Scheduling Priority Initiatives. You can find more information on our CAISO website under project initiatives. So this is a large effort to update how we provide high priority wheel-through priorities in our market. So for more information, I refer you to that website. And this is the first PR of language that supports this effort. So we didn't receive any comments on this, and the initial comment period expired on February 13th. So our next step on this would be to post a recommendation.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions from the attendees on the line today? All right. Do we want to go back to Yannick and see if maybe the audio has improved on PRR number 1547?
Yannick and Jenny.
I don't think he has connected back to the call yet.
Okay, let's go ahead. I think I have a couple more, and we will get back to 1547. So let's speak about PRR 1549. This is a clarification to the Mosaic quantile regression use for our historical data. So we do use now a Mosaic quantile regression for histograms for essentially determining our uncertainty calculations. So we clarified that we can use more historical data in this computations. We didn't receive any comments, and this comment period also expired on February 13th. And at this point, we'll post the final decision.
All right, wonderful. Any questions on PRR 1549 before we move on to the next? All right, the next PR is number 1552. Michael, I'll go ahead and give this one to you.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a project manager?
15. Why is this reading so much like the prior one? I'm sorry, hold on a sec. Can you go back to the prior slide, please?
Sure.
These, I'll have to look at and see if I double posted something, but this looks like the same change. I might have double posted this PRR, my mistake, but let me sort through that. Again, this is discussing about the same change to the number of historical dates used in that quantile regression formula.
Okay. All right, the next set of BPMs we're covering is going to be for market instruments, PR number 1546, which is in the recommendation stage. Michael, this one is also yours as well, so go ahead and hand it off to you.
Sure, PR 1546. Go ahead to the next slide, please. So this is in the market instruments BPM. And this actually covers a report that was already implemented in the Energy Storage Enhancements Phase 2 effort. This has been available since we implemented that project. I believe it was November 1st of last year. We just simply forgot to mention this report addition in the market instruments BPM. So this report is now described in this BPM. So the effective date was actually backdated. So that's why it's mentioned as an emergency, because it actually has been implemented. We didn't receive any comments saying comment expiration time, and at this point we'll post the final decision. So any questions on that one?
And remember, if you have a question, to raise your hand if you're in the WebEx, or if you are dialed in by phone, you can press #2 on your keypad to be placed into the queue.
All right, it looks like we do have a hand raise from Alva. Give me 1 second. Go ahead, your line is unmuted. Caller, your line is unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Just I wanted to understand the terminology uneconomically dispatched there. That's referring to exceptional dispatch, correct? There's a few different contexts in which state of charge is being talked about here. I'm assuming this is to do with the exceptional dispatch to charge or support a state of charge.
Yes, you're correct. This report focuses on exceptional dispatch.
Great.
Of battery resources.
Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it.
All right, any other questions on PR 1546 before we move forward?
Looks like we have one more hand raise. All right, caller, your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is VJ from PacifiCorp. My question was actually on 1552, but I'm not sure if you wanted me to ask that now or if Michael's going to come back to that one later in this meeting.
1552 was one of the PRRs that discussed the quantile regression and change of the historical dates. Yes, we can speak to that now.
Sure. Okay, great. Thanks. So first question would be, when are these changes going to be made? Like, when are they going to be implemented?
Oh, I wish I had someone from the group. I would 99% assume that we're doing that now, and this was a clarification. I think I submitted it as a clarification that we change it from something that is 180 days to something that's configurable. I suppose I can get back to you on if it's actually been changed or not.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think for us, it was just kind of around the day types, like removing the day types as well, just because we use some of that for our own setting of the FRP requirements. So yeah, if you could get back up to me on that, that would be great. And then second question would be, or is there some sort of process for the CAISO to change the 180 days of historical data or any like type of reporting if the CAISO does change to how many days you're using?
So I think we put the language in that you know, left it open, you know, to just being configurable. If we go through the BPM process for every time we change it, I'm not sure if that might be clumsy or not. I'd have to get back to, you know, the short-term forecast team and see if that's something that, you know, they would support. So how about I'll take that action also?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not really like wanting to make it so like we have to go through a BPM process every time. I'm just more wondering if there's some sort of like reporting on that or some way for us to know how many days are being used.
Right. Not that I know of. And again, I'm going to have to ask, you know, I don't know if they have a commitment to send a market message or they were just thinking that this language would change it and people would be, you know, comfortable with that alone. So it's a fair question. I'll take that back. And also, I'm getting a message here that it's been confirmed that the two PRRs that I think it was 1549 and 1552 were in fact duplicates. So we will clean that up.
All right, great.
Okay,
Thank you, Michael.
That's it for me.
All right, it looks like we have one more hand raise from Chris. All right, go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
This is Chris Devon with Theragen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. I just had a follow up on PRR 1546 to what Elda was asking about. He was asking if this was only for exceptional dispatches. And I believe Michael confirmed that, but I just want to revisit that for a minute because that doesn't actually meet my understanding of when these AS SOC constraints can uneconomically dispatch resources. That also can be done through the market and not just through exceptional dispatch. So I just was hoping to maybe explore that a little bit more and either confirm or maybe my understanding is just wrong and that that's already being flagged when there are just general market dispatches that are uneconomically dispatching to support AS SOC.
Right. So there is. I understand where you're coming from. It is possible for an uneconomic dispatch. The focus of the effort in phase 2 was hold SOC exceptional dispatches, and I believe the effort of this report was to support that, you know, to show when we do exceptional dispatch. I'm going to ask Jenny to also help chime in here. Jenny?
Okay. Sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Kind of.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm. No, it's breaking up.
Yeah, Jenny, we're having a hard time hearing you all.
Yeah. Let me just say maybe clarify a question, I guess. So on this, understood that this is intended to you know indicate when there are those exceptional dispatch state of charge that this would be triggered. So I guess my question would be, and this may just be a failure of my understanding in the CRMI, MRI reports, but is there still already a flag for when this is done in general, just due to the market dispatches and not just an exceptional dispatch? I guess that's the question.
Got it. So what I recall on the state of charge ED exceptional dispatch, there's certain conditions had to be met for the counterfactual payment. It had to be fixed, it had to be 0 megawatts. We basically had to be in the position, and a unique position, to actually ask the battery resource to mark time. Literally just stay there, hold your charge, and we need you for later. And in that case, it was felt that we should do a counterfactual payment to make one whole. So that was the intent of it, and maybe I'm not quite getting the question.
I understand. Let me jump in. So I think I understand where you're going, which is basically you need this flag to be able to provide that counterfactual settlement, to pay for these resources when their opportunity costs, essentially when they are held. So essentially my question is just trying to get at if market participants are actually able to see when the market uneconomically dispatches, if this would trigger just in general when the market does it too, instead of just only when there's an exceptional dispatch.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I get it now. You've asked it a couple different ways, and I understand it. My understanding is it's not going to show that, but I'm going to have to write this down.
Okay, that's fine. No, that's fine. Yeah, if you guys could just clarify that, then, and maybe in the following, because it wasn't quite clear in the actual BPM language when I was looking at it, but I appreciate you trying to run that down. I definitely understand the reason and the intent behind it. I just think in general it would be helpful if that information would be made clear to participants when it happens, just in general due to the market as well. But I recognize that this is intended to be a settlements procedure and a process that's necessary to support that exceptional dispatch piece. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Got it. And I'm writing this down up for follow-up. Thanks.
Hi, this is Yannick. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Hello. Maybe I can answer some of these questions because we are talking about this market active resource constraint reports, right? Can you still hear me? Sorry, I'm not even sure which headset is working right now. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. It's a little quiet,
Okay.
but we can hear you.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. Because this market active resource report, it's reporting on what we call internally at least, the ASC flag. And, to your question, whether it was just for exceptional dispatches or uneconomical dispatches produced by markets, in my understanding, it's more the second option. Like whenever markets schedule the resource in such a way which is uneconomical, so it goes into settlement, and settlement determines if the resource is surplus or shortfall in that particular interval. So we report that flag. Well, actually, the way it's working, implementation-wise, markets report that flag whenever we see that an ASC constraint is binding in one of the advisory intervals, and we also notice that the resource has a non-zero AS award, okay, which contributes to trigger the ASC constraint, and that's under those conditions that market is going to issue that flag. And my understanding is market active resource constraint report that we have in the CMRI is relaying that flag to you. Okay, because that's when markets suspect that a binding ASC constraint is going to cause an uneconomical dispatch. Okay, but the uneconomical dispatch, and we issue the flag under those conditions, and then settlement is going to process that flag and check if there is indeed an uneconomical dispatch in that interval, and if this is the case, this is when we remove the VCR. So that's how it works. Essentially, market issues that flag, when we see binding ASC constraints, and also you have the non-zero AS award, which is driving this ASC constraint to bind. That's when you have the flag. It doesn't have much to do with exceptional dispatch, and the uneconomical part is checked by settlement after it receives the flag from market. Does it make sense?
Yeah. Okay, it looks like we do have two callers raising their hands. I'll first go to Alva.
Hi,
Caller, your line is unmuted.
Yannick, can you hear me?
Sure, yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
Great. This was very helpful, but I have to say it was unexpected. I don't think we had read and perhaps it's because of the language in the PRR and what may be in the BPM. So you may want to look at that, because for example, what it says here is support state of charge, but there's no mention of ASSOC here. And so what you're saying sounds very helpful. It sounds like exactly what Chris was asking for, but it's not clear from here, and we had not even been aware, I don't think, and I have to check with internally, but I don't think we were aware of the scope of this. So we appreciate the clarification, but just to point out, it's a bit of a surprise to us. So thank you.
Okay, yeah, sure, welcome.
All right, moving on to the next caller.
All right, great. And actually, Yannick, since your audio is connected, I think we might go back to 1547 just to.
Hold on. Can I jump in? Go back to 1546. Sorry, guys. I got to follow up on that one. So this is Chris again. Sorry to interrupt. I appreciate the follow up here from Alva and Yannick, and so that confirms what I was seeing in the actual red line in the BPM, because it does say ASSOC constraint in the red line language here in the actual BPM red line. So I appreciate the clarification here. I understand now that it is going to do what I was asking for, what I was hoping it would do. And then I think it is actually quite related to 1547, which we should talk more about as well. So it's very much quite intertwined here. I would say that we would definitely support this kind of report on this one, but we just have concerns about the whole process of how this is being done on 1547. We can talk more about that, but I think I appreciate the clarification here. I understand a little bit better to kind of what Alva was saying. I think I'm a little bit surprised that this is part of this. All of this maybe should be kind of done in one PRR, perhaps, I think. But anyways, I'll stop with that, and then I'll chime in on 1547 again. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so let's cover PRR 1547 market operations. Yannick, the floor is yours.
Yes. So essentially, so like I was trying to mention before, when so the project ESC Track 1, which went live on July 1st, 2023, modified the formulation of the ASC constraints. It changed the time index of the SOC term in there, and so as a result, we had to modify the logic of the ASC project to accommodate this change in time index. And so that's essentially the reason why that instead of checking whether the ASC constraint is binding in the financially binding interval, we're now checking whether it's binding in the first advisory interval. So part of the changes we made there was to, accommodate this change in time index. But then, so it's kind of, updating the project at this point. But then after we went into production with this, what DMM noticed as well is that any binding ASC constraint in any one of the future advisory intervals could drive an uneconomical dispatch in the financially binding interval. Okay, so we have multiple examples of this where maybe advisory interval 8 has a binding ASC constraint, which is going to force a depleted storage resource, for example, to charge, for for the first 7 intervals, including the financially binding intervals, it will force a charge so that this storage is able to meet the ASC requirement in interval 8. Okay, because maybe in interval 8, this is when you have a regulation upward or a spinning award that is there. And so you have to make sure that your storage resource has enough SOC to be able to sustain this award for 30 minutes. Okay, so it's going to require a higher state of charge than just the minimum state of charge of the storage resource. And in turn, that's going to force your storage resource to keep charging from the beginning of the optimization, including in the financially binding interval, which is the one we're interested in. So we saw that, I mean, the MN saw that, we noticed that all those future intervals, they could also cause an uneconomical dispatch in the financially binding interval. And so this is why now, with the latest logic for ASC, which went live in market on December 12th, not only did we fix this issue with the time index that changed in the ASC constraints, but also we're checking all the advisory intervals, whether we have binding ASC constraints in there, because all of them can cause this uneconomical dispatch in the financially binding interval. It can cause the storage it can force it to charge uneconomically, but because you have those constraints to meet, or it can force it to discharge uneconomically as well if down the line you have some regulation downwards. So this is what this enhanced logic, this modification we put in BPM describes this new enhanced logic that went live in market on December 12th. So this is for this reason. I mean, as far as settlement is concerned, there are still some modifications that must go live in settlement before we can, before we can have proper BCR removal in settlement, and before we can make retro corrections as well. So the market piece is done, but settlement still has a few things to modify, so we can make the settlements proper, and so we can make the retro corrections as well. Retro corrections back to July 1st, 2023, because this is when the ASC project went. This is when we had this change in time index from ESC track 1. So we'll have to back correct to that date.
It looks like we do have a hand raised from Michael. Caller, your line is unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, this is Michael Volpe from PG&E. Thanks, Yannick, for responding to this. I have 2 questions. One is, will DMM or CAISO be releasing the data or analysis that he describes? And what is the magnitude of the BCR kind of, resettlements?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about that. We need to ask somebody from DMM. I'm not entirely sure, but it seems it's pretty common to have future advisory intervals impacting the financially binding intervals, causing those uneconomical dispatches.
Okay, it's really hard to kind of accept the changes suggested here without any data or analysis supporting this.
Right.
So, and also, if CAISO can take a look at our comments and also those from Terragen and provide written responses, that would be really appreciated.
Well, I think at the very least right now, what you can also do a bit, because in CMRI, this flag we were talking about, this market active resource constraint flag. So this is what market publishes whenever we notice that there is a binding ASC constraint in one of the advisory intervals, and also we make sure that it's driven by AS awards, right? We make sure that the resource has an AS awards, which in turn make the ASC constraint more tight. and so you're going to have a tighter requirement on the SOC you need for that interval. So at the very least right now, you can check CMRI and you can see for your resources what kind of flag you get. Again, and you see that the flag is triggered pretty often actually, both in RTPD and RTD. So those are the conditions where we detect that we might have an economical dispatch, and then that flag is being sent to settlement, and settlement will determine if there is indeed an economical dispatch. And if this is the case, this is when we remove the BCR. So we can see with DMM to do more analysis, but already on your side, every day you can see what kind of flag we issue for this particular matter. That will give you an idea of the frequency.
Yeah, thanks for that. We'd still prefer some written response to these questions.
Okay.
Looks like we have another hand raised from Chris. Go ahead, your line's unmuted.
Yeah, thanks. It's Chris Devlin with Terragen. So similarly to Michael, I just concur with that request to maybe get some formal response to the comments on this one. I just am maybe not quite clear on the whole BPM PRR process at this point. What are the next steps for this one? Is it going to be some chance to discuss this further, or what stage are we in? Really, I don't quite follow. Sorry.
Hi, this is Nicole. For the general PRR process, if PRRs are in the initial stage, for the initial meeting today, it is going to go through a recommendation. We're going to open it up for another 10-day commenting period, and then have the second meeting for the recommendation. We'll post the final decision, and then there's going to be a 10-day commenting period to appeal it. If your PRRs are in the recommendation stage, we're going to cut that down by because you've already had the initial meeting.
So is there a chance that CAISO is going to provide some response now during this time frame so that we can provide more written comments back in response?
For any PRR, there is the potential to make changes in any PRR. Yes.
Okay, and then when would that happen on this one? What time frame?
For 1547, yes, it is in initial stage. There'll be another commenting period before we final it.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm just trying to clarify, when would CAISO provide something back in writing when they do their, responses to the initial comments? Would that be, a specific date, or is that sometime just between now and the next 10 days?
So on February 27th, the market notice goes out for the next set of commenting. So around February 27th, we should have all of our responses and recommendations updated.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. That was what I was trying to get a little bit more clarity on there. So, okay, we'll look forward to that. And I'd just say thanks, Nicole. And then just for Yannick and others that are maybe working on this a little bit more closely, Terragen shares some similar concerns with PG&E as noted in our comments, but I'll just reiterate that I think there's maybe a little bit of an expansion of how much is this BCR ineligibility is going to be applied now, which is concerning given the fact that the CAISO is not going to even provide any BCR whatsoever, even to the DEB level, which I think is perhaps a fairer outcome. Although I understood that maybe does not. That's more of a tariff or a policy level question. So I think there's pretty good reason on this one why the CAISO should really open this up to a broader stakeholder initiative, or at least what I would call like one of the miscellaneous stakeholder meetings to have some serious discussions on how this will impact stakeholders with resource owners, storage resource owners particularly. So I'll just leave it at that, but we'll follow up on the next steps as well. Thank you.
All right, great. The next BPM that we are covering is the BPM change management PR number 1550. Nicole, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
And so PR 1550 is a correction to the formatting and links to the BPM for change management BPM. It hasn't been updated in quite some time, so we went and we corrected document formatting, updated hyperlinks and language to bring it more current. There were no initial comments, and the initial comment period expired on February 13th, and we're going to post the recommendation next. I will be covering the definitions BPM also, so can you go to the next slide, please, Ryan? So for PRR 1551, this is the definitions and acronyms BPM. We have revised and incorporated updates to the ISO Appendix A for definitions and acronyms, as well as recent revisions to other existing BPMs. We will update this BPM at least annually, as this is a convenience copy of all of our definitions and acronyms. And this BPM will be effective at the end of the PRR process. Same as the previous PRR, it is in the initial commenting phase, which closed on February 13th, and there were no comments. And the next step is to post the recommendations. Are there any questions on PRR 1550 or 1551? All right, Ryan, back to you.
All right, thank you. All right, the next BPM we're covering is for transmission planning process, PR number 1553, which is in the initial stage. Robert, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Yeah, good morning. This is Robert Sparks. Well, there's just a little bit of language being added to BPM Section 10, Transition Planning BPM Section 10, so that when, and the purpose of that section is for creating accurate generator models for transmission planning purposes. And we found in the past that generators were hitting system voltage, or basically voltage limits, which oftentimes were correlated to the system voltage limits, and there was no effort to try and coordinate with ISO operations or PTO operations to adjust reactive support devices in the area in order to allow a more complete reactive power test in the generator. And this language just essentially specifies that that sort of coordination should happen during the test, and provides a little detail on how that should happen.
All right, wonderful. Any questions from anyone on the line on PRR 1553? All right, moving on. The next set of BPRs that we'll be covering is for the generator interconnection and deliverability allocation procedures, PRR number 1543, 1544, and 1545. Dawn, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay, Kaylee.
Hi, this is actually. Thanks, Dawn. This is Kaylee Zaveri. I'm actually going to take over this one. 1543, site exclusivity demonstration clarifications. The reason for this revision was set exclusivity requirements and clarification for the deposit and the demonstration form and the acreage reasonably necessary. We did receive comments from AES, TerraGen, and Large Scale Solar Association. The latest round of comments, we did go ahead and make a change to show that you can submit documentation for any technology if you can prove that you need less acreage than is the minimum that is listed. The comment period expired on February 13th, and the next step is to post a final decision. Are there any questions on this?
All right, great. Thank you, Kaylee. All right,
and
moving
I'll
on
pass
to
it back to
1544.
Dawn.
Okay, for PRR 1544, this is to clarify the ISO's practice of reviewing power purchase agreements with non-load serving entity off-takers to ensure that they comport with the ISO's tariff and purposes. We did not receive any recommendation comments for the comment period that ended February 13th of 2024, and the next step is to post a final decision. Any questions here? Okay, I guess not. Okay, I'll move on. PRR 1545 is on hold. It was a PRR to clarify that the TP deliverability allocation date for distributed generation deliverability allocation date would be used to determine interim deliverability allocation priority. The ISO has decided to hold this and pursue it at a later time.
So it looks like we do have one hand raised from Ryan. Caller, your line's unmuted. Please go ahead.
Energy, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
When you say it will return to the initial comment period, does that mean there will be another 10-day initial comment period, then a recommendation, then another 10-day recommendation comment period?
That's correct.
That's correct. Sorry, you cut out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. When we put PRRs back into an initial commenting phase, it will continue through the standard process like new.
Okay, and then just one clarifying, any estimate for when the initial comment period will commence? Is it likely to occur before the next BPM change management meeting on March 26th?
Yeah, this is Robert Sparks. The reason we're putting this one on hold is because we're wanting to put it into the interconnection process enhancement stakeholder initiative. And once we have confirmed that that has happened, then we would probably just withdraw the whole thing. If we determine that that doesn't happen, then we would have to resume the BPM process.
Okay.
When will occur is linked to the developments in the IPE, interconnection, or the IPE stakeholder process, which I think is in the next, we should know within a few months or sooner.
Okay, so if it's going to be, so likely if it is, it'll be in the final draft that come in the final draft of the IPE.
I believe that's the hope, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Appreciate the clarification.
All right, looks like we have two more hands raised. I'll first go to Grant. Caller, your line is unmuted. Go ahead.
User with Emanate. One question in addition to the ones that Ryan asked. On the PRR page, it says there's a spot to click here to view the recommendation details for the PRR. I'm curious if the recommendation of approve the BPM PRR as submitted was CAISO's official response to stakeholder feedback, or what? I guess I'm curious, and also when was that posted?
This is Dawn. I didn't make any changes until after the initial comment period. Actually, and we didn't even receive any comments during the initial comment period because the comments all came in the recommendation phase. And so we looked at the comments and then made the determination that we were just going to hold. Nicole, do you have, so I can't say that there is an official response to the comments other than we are going to pursue it, like Robert said, in IPE rather than in this PRR process, if we are able to do that.
Yes, so Don, when we moved this PRR to the recommendation stage, being no comments on the initial, our recommendation was to proceed as we originally submitted. So now with any changes, we're going to update any language. For now, if you go to the PRR website, you will see that that PRR has now been put into a hold status. So that's where it is right now.
Thank you.
All right, we got one more hand raise from Ryan. All right, caller, your line's unmuted. Please go ahead.
Redwell Consulting. I will submit this in my IPE comments too, but I'm wondering, is this going into IPE phase 2 or like a future phase of IPE? Because the next paper iteration will be the final proposal. And with that, there wouldn't be time for stakeholder comments before going to the board. So just want to make sure somewhere in the process, we've got a time for, that back and forth written discussion.
Yeah, I think that's why it's not certain that we can put it into IPE. If there's not time for processing it through IPE, then we wouldn't be able to do it. But if there is, then we would.
Okay, thank you so much.
It looks like that's
All
it
right,
for questions.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so the next BPM monthly meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, March 26th at 11 a.m. Pacific. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at bpm_cm@kaiso.com. But that concludes our meeting for today. So thanks, everybody.
All right, that concludes our conference. You may now disconnect.